This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Everyone, and welcome to This Week in Sports, our Sunday Sports Special. I'm your host, Mac, and your co-host, Jack Hirsch. Our other compadre, Jim Jeffcoat, is out at a charity event, so he says. So he won't be in today, but he said he'll be listening in to make sure we're doing the correct thing, I guess, Jack. So how you doing today?
Yeah, good. We'll miss Jim, of course, but listen, when Jim played for the Cowboys and the Bills, he had some off days even when he was in the game.
Yeah, he did. So, Jack, I guess the biggest story coming up tomorrow is a deadline, 17 July at 4 p.m. to teams to either, sign a player to a contract or to franchise tag anyone. And the three biggest names out there right now, of course, Saquon Barkley, been in the news a lot. Josh Jacobs, the great running back for the Raiders, also hasn't signed yet. And tight end for the Jaguars, Evan Ingram, a former Giants tight end. So, and by the way, Joe Mixon did take a pay cut to stay with the Bengals, so he'll be there with the Bengals this year. Pretty smart move by him. I think the Bengals got a real good chance of going to the Super Bowl, maybe winning it this year. So let's get to Saquon. He finally said what he wanted. I haven't read anything that said what Saquon actually wanted for a contract and what his team was looking for. And Jack, what he wants is the equivalent of signing the two franchise tags for the next 2 years, $22.1 million.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed, right. He wants that guaranteed. And that's what he would get if he was franchised twice, 2 years in a row. The only fear that I think the Giants have here is if he gets hurt this year, Jack. But what do you think? Shouldn't you just sign the guy? I mean, I know he might get hurt, but that's might. What would you do, Jack?
It would be a bargain for the Giants. Just guarantee him the darn money. Yeah. They're playing around like, $3 million less guaranteed, this and that. He's the best player on their team, point blank. I mean, he's a team captain. He's a leader. He's a face of the franchise. And they're basically the Giants front office playing around for the equivalent of chump change for what it's worth for the organization as a whole. And it's going to backfire on the Giants. It's going to backfire on them in the long run. Already Saquon Barkley's enthusiasm about being a New York Giant is lessened. He's already saying he sees what a business this is. They all know it's a business. They're not naive, the players. But why are they doing this, the Giants? I don't understand. They're under certain pressure because the Giant management made it clear they expect this deal to get done. That's a message to the front office without directly interfering. And I think the Giant plan in the front office is to give in to Saquon at the end to see how far they can push it, how much they can get away with it. But there are repercussions by doing that at the end. You win the battle but lose the war.
Okay. Good morning to Keith Engle from TGI Sports Talk. Keith, how you doing today?
Good morning.
Keith, you don't have any problem like that on the Patriots. You try to deal with the DeAndre Hopkins, and we'll get to that in a minute. Jack has a great point. I mean, this is the best player on the Giants offense anyway. He's the captain. He's the face of the franchise. Why are the Giants messing around with this
guy? Basically because the market for running backs is so down, I think. I agree with Jack. I would sign him up. And I don't blame Barkley either for not playing for the franchise tag. He could get hurt. And these guys' window is to make money is very small, especially running backs. I don't at the same time, I don't think it behooves him to sit out the season either, because I don't think that works out. Look how it worked out for Le'Veon Bell. It doesn't work out as a rule. So,
but Keith, Le'Veon Bell got nearly as much money as the Steelers originally offered him that he turned down. So hypothetically, let me ask you, let's say Saquon Barkley says, the heck with it, I'm sitting out one season, and he comes back next year. Don't you think he's young enough, he'll be healthy enough to get a 1-year deal at the same money he would have gotten for the franchise tag this year? 1-year deal. I think he would, absolutely. And what would that do to the Giants' plans? That would turn that team upside down if he called their bluff and he actually sat the year out.
Yeah, to the first part of that, when I say sitting out the year wouldn't behoove him, but it's not so much from the money. He'll get his money. Le'Veon Bell got his money from the Jets, but he wasn't the player that he was before he sat out. You're giving away years of your career, and I don't think that's a great idea either. As far as the Giants go, yes, this without Saquon Barkley, this won't be a playoff team. I've heard guys say, they can just bring in Dalvin Cook for less money. Well, he's not the same player Barkley is. Sorry, not even close in my mind. So this is an interesting decision. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they've got till tomorrow to make a deal, or they can't talk to him anymore about an extension, right? So
right, yeah, till the season's over. So
yeah.
So I think it gets done. I don't understand what the holdup is. Maybe if they agreed to it right away, maybe Barkley would have wanted more money. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing negotiating there. But.
The Giants it's not like they have negotiated in bad faith. I mean, they guaranteed nearly $20 million of this contract, which is a lot for a running back in my mind. So it's not like they've gone in bad faith. I think they're just, I think both sides are going to have to compromise a little bit, and I do think it'll get done too.
Chief, don't you think running backs should take a stand? The elite running backs, they know their value to the team, and they're being undervalued. The elite running backs like Saquon Barkley are undervalued. They deserve a lot more money. Someone has got to take a stand on this. Enough is enough. I mean, the elite running back should be fed up. They should look at the other position players and say, look, we're more important than these guys, or at least we're as important. And if they're going to underpay us, we're not just playing. We're sitting out the year or whatever. Play hardball back.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's a fact that teams don't think the running back position is valuable. I think they think that they're interchangeable, that they can just go out and find another guy to replace the guy that they got in most cases.
You can't with Saquon Barkley. You can't.
I think there's a handful of guys you can say, no, that's not true to. But you see it in the draft. It's the same thing in the draft. They don't draft guys high because they don't want to pay them that kind of money. So, again, the game has changed so that their position has been marginalized financially because they feel that most of them, again, are interchangeable. I don't think Barkley is either. I'm a big Saquon Barkley fan, and I think he's, the Giants are making a huge mistake if they don't find a way to get this done.
But isn't there another element involved, guys? Saquon Barkley has this great clean-cut image, loves being a Giant, is the face. He's basically the face of the franchise. When you think of the Giants, you don't think of Daniel Jones. You don't think of Dexter Lawrence. You think of Saquon Barkley first and foremost. Yep. And those are the type of guys you want them to be basically a career player for you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, there's more to it. Same thing we talked about Aaron Judge. There's more to it than what he brings to game day, right? So, unfortunately, with running backs, they don't last very long in the NFL. As a rule, again, some guys have lasted a long time. The average guy is still about 5 years or less, I think.
Yes, about 3 years. Good morning, Rick. Glad to see you. Jim's at a charitable event today. He's helping out. Saquon Barkley's raising money.
Isn't this a charitable event? I write this off on my taxes every year.
There you go. So, Keith, let's get to why you're here. A little Yankees, Pats, and Knicks news. Judge is hitting. I guess that's good news, right?
And running.
So that's good. Maybe DH down the line here. In Stanton did go deep for the Yankees.
4 RBIs.
Yeah, he got 4 RBIs, so he's finally doing what he's getting paid to do. I'm not, so thrilled with that. He just did that once. He's got to.
DJ LeMayo, Mac, the last couple of games has started hitting again.
His return to Colorado has helped him for sure.
Yeah.
But is that anything to do with the hitting coach? You think, Keith? Is the hitting? I mean, listen, they talk about a hitting coach, and I understand that that maybe I remember A-Rod had a problem for a while, raising his foot too soon, and the hitting coach kind of worked with him, and it worked out for him. But is that really as big as positions we're making it out to be?
Well, no. I mean, if it was going to happen immediately anyway, I mean, they scored two runs Friday night, so it's not like they got, except for Stanton's home run Friday night, they didn't hit the ball a lot.
Right.
Some guys have gotten hot, but this is the problem. I like Sean Casey. I think we talked about it Friday. I like the attitude he brings. I think he'll bring some energy to that dugout. If you saw him, he was running up and down the dugout, patting guys on the back, having conversations. Hold on, that helps a little bit. I'm not
saying that's all show. That reminds me when Lee Mazzilli came back to the Mets. Mets would do something, they'd score a big run, they run out of the dugout, he would be the first one to bench play, and they'd go, oh, what a team player, how good he is for the Mets.
If I can finish my comment, bringing an energy to this team, which lacks energy, is a positive thing. But in the long run, he's not going to have that much impact individually. These guys are veterans, and they've got to get it going. To blame, look at Dylan Lawson needed to go. Somebody had to be a scapegoat. The Yankees have been atrocious, so he's a scapegoat. Is Sean Casey going to make it appreciably better? Not if the players don't play better, no. So,
yeah,
I don't think
I got the Sean Casey test for you. Don't tell me about Stanton and DJ LeMayo, because they were going to hit again. They were going to come back. It's not like they were never going to hit again. Josh Donaldson, that's the Sean Casey test. If Josh Donaldson can turn it around, I'll say, wow, what a job by Sean Casey. But if Josh Donaldson continues the way he is, don't tell me about Volpe, Stanton, LeMayo starting to hit again, because they were going to hit again anyway. But no one is really optimistic Josh Donaldson's going to come back and start hitting again. So that's his test.
He's not going to that's where he's heading. So he's not going to.
He's going to injury reserve, Jack. So unless he's going to help him on injury reserve hitting, that's not going to help him.
I really think you may have seen last
yesterday was 0 for 4.
And he got hurt yesterday.
He got hurt.
I didn't hear that. He's on injured reserve again.
He's going to he's going to injured reserve list. So.
Wow. Okay.
Jogging back to the dugout on one of his strikeouts, he pulled a muscle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So let's see. Lewis Gill back in pitching again. I don't know if you remember Lewis Gill, that hard throwing right-hander they had Tommy John surgery. He's up and throwing again. And Cortez is throwing again too. So 2 pitchers back that could be back in the pitching staff here pretty soon.
Yeah, that's important. I mean, look at how much they'll contribute. Cortez is huge. I mean, they need him for that rotation. They really do. And they need him to be close to what he was before. Gill, anything they get from him will be a bonus. And the bullpen has been their strength this year and really kept them afloat as much as they have been afloat. So I think those are two good things. Listen, something to think about too. I think you've seen the end of Josh Donaldson. I don't think he comes back from this IL stint. Yankees are actively looking for a third baseman. They're talking about the kid from Washington. Well, he's not a kid, I guess. From Washington, who's had a decent year this year, and he's going to be a very attractive player for a lot of teams, I think. But I think you may have seen the last.
Peraza, if he's really that good of a prospect, why don't you bring him up? They put him on the same level, basically. His progress is Anthony Volpe.
Yeah.
And the Yankees didn't hesitate to just give Volpe the job and play him the whole year. You mean to tell me at this point, if you can't bring Peraza up to play third, he's not the prospect that the Yankees made him out to be?
But I don't think he's played any third base. It's not easy to just take him up here and throw him at third base and say, go out there and do the job. I think, I have another theory.
I think he did play some third base.
He might have played some. I'm not saying he hasn't played a lot of third base enough to maybe play every day at a major league level, which he maybe not have to do because DJ is going to play some too. I have another theory about Peraza. The Yankees desperately want, and this is not a knock on Volpe because he's going to be a great player, but Peraza is a better defensive player than Volpe. It's just a fact. And I think the Yankees.
It's an opinion. It's not a fact, Keith. 1 + 1 = 2 is a fact.
I've watched the guys play. I mean, the eye test.
It's your opinion. It's not a fact.
Oh my God! What's he doing this morning? Is he in the?
Over here. Jim's not here.
Is he
display-
on coach today? Is he
Yeah,
on
yeah,
the conversation.
All right. In my mind, it's a fact that Peraza is a better defensive player than Volpe. And the Yankees don't want to risk. They want Volpe to be the shortstop because of the matinee looks and everything else. He's the guy they want to be that player. And they're afraid to bring Peraza up a little bit because they're going to find out that he's a better defensive player than Volpe, which doesn't matter to me. I don't care. They could put Volpe at second base and put Peraza at shortstop for the rest of their careers, and I'd be very happy because I think they're both going to be great players.
So you're saying, wait, Keith, you're saying they're scared of public perception, the Yankees. If Peraza shows he's better, there could be pressure on the organization. But we had the same thing with A-Rod and Jeter. When A-Rod came over, he was actually a better shortstop, but there was no real pressure on the Yankees.
No,
By A-Rod, thought.
Jeter was well entrenched at shortstop. You weren't going to move him, even though you're right. A-Rod was, in your opinion,
In my opinion.
a better short.
Opinion.
And he was, by the way, a better defensive shortstop than Jeter. Yes.
You know what I don't understand is if Peraza is not going to play shortstop, why do they continue to play him shortstop in the minors?
That's a great point.
And they just in their one of their major draft picks, they picked up another shortstop. Now I'm not sure who. I guess they like shortstops. I would imagine, but
my worry would be, and I don't think they should do this. My worry that message is okay. He'll be used as a trade chip now or down the line, and I hope that's not the case because I think he's going to be a heck of a player.
Yeah.
With Peraza, the Yankees are using him as a trade chip. That's why maybe they're playing him at shortstop, increases value, and then see what they can do, at the trade deadline.
That's funny. He barely sounded like me when he said that.
No, I'm just saying it makes sense.
So DeAndre Hopkins is kind of, I don't know if you call it bad mouthing the Patriots, but he says he doesn't want to go to the Patriots because of the quarterback situation. It's not, he's not sure that it's the right situation for him. He wants to be with a great quarterback for a stable franchise and a solid defense, Keith. So that's why DeAndre Hopkins didn't sign with you, according to him.
Well, that's fairly damning. I mean, it's not great praise for sure. There is some look at the Belichick Kraft Mac Jones story keeps getting a little bit more interesting. It seems every day. Hopkins now, it appears Kansas City's making waves about maybe signing him. They don't have any money. I don't know how they're going to sign him unless he wants to sign for $2.5 million. Where's he going to go? All the teams that he just alluded to that are ready to win, have franchise quarterbacks, and have good defenses, they don't have any money to spend, or they already have a quarterback. So his options are limited still to me to Tennessee and the Patriots. And he's either going to sit a year again, not a great idea at his age. If he doesn't want to come here, don't come here. But
Right.
I get a little worried with him coming in after having made those statements.
But you know what it is? If you went to either New England or Tennessee, even though they're two good, competent quarterbacks in Mac Jones and Ryan Tannehill, both of them are essentially game managers. And I think a receiver like Hopkins wants to have a quarterback who's more of a game changer, an elite type quarterback, as opposed to a game manager.
Again, there's only a handful of those guys in the league, and the teams don't have the wherewithal to get him or the need to get him.
I mean, if you at Kansas City, I mean, like you said, don't have the money, and they're already a Super Bowl team without him. Tennessee is no different to me than New England. I mean, they're the same basic quarterbacks. I think New England's defense might even be a little bit better than Tennessee's, but that's my opinion. And Buffalo, there seems to be a problem there with their other receiver, their Diggs. So I don't know where he's going to go.
They got cap issues as well. Don't get me wrong. I think the Chiefs would love to have Hopkins in that offense. He would just make them unbelievably good. But again, you got to have the money to do it. He wants X amount of money. He already can't get that from the Patriots and the Titans. And to me, that's probably the reason he hasn't signed. He can say whatever he wants. He also wants the money.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
Patriots and Titans have, I think the Patriots have capped at 8 million ish, and he wants more. So
Yeah, good luck.
you're not going to get more making those statements. I can tell you that.
I guess it comes down to, do you want to be playing for a Super Bowl team or do you want to make some money? And that's what it's going to be.
I never liked the fit because Bill O'Brien's the offensive coordinator of the Patriots, and he had problems with Hopkins when
I still think
I never understood it, but for a while it looked like it might actually happen. But I guess money talks, if anything could happen, any player could go to any team once again, even though he had problems with the coach before. But I just didn't see the money being there to be attractive to Hopkins to go back and work with a coach who he had difficulty with before.
Well, it would help the Patriots, and it's unfortunate if this doesn't happen because they would be a much better team. I think they're going to be a much better team anyway. He's going to be the quarterback situation is clearer, I think, than everybody thinks because of what's becoming more and more clear about Kraft and Mac Jones's relationship is pretty strong. So if this comes down to Mac Jones versus Bill Belichick, I don't think Belichick's going to have a lot of leg to stand on this time.
If the Patriots are going to be better, as you say, Keith, the AFC East is so intriguing because that means there's going to probably be at least one casualty, one team that's going to play below expectations on the year. And who might it be? The Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, or the Jets? It's hard to believe all of them are going to be 9-8 and 10-7. There's going to be such parity to that extent. Probably someone is going to fall, and have a really poor year unexpectedly.
Well, the Bills would have to fall to be at, 9-8 or something, but I do think there'll be some parity in there. I don't think it's going to take 12 or 13 wins to win that division. I just don't. And if there's a team that's going to falter, I think it could be the Dolphins because their quarterback situation isn't exactly stellar.
Oh, I think that, my opinion anyway, Dolphins are a chance to go to Super Bowl this year. That's good.
Look, if all things work out, they got a lot of talent, but there's still question mark at the quarterback position because can he stay healthy through the year?
Well, they have Mike White as a backup.
That should be in a Super Bowl.
No, it's a backup, a decent backup. He performed somewhat for the Jets.
Yeah, he gets hurt every time he plays too, though. He's another guy who can't stay healthy.
Very true.
He's played well, but can't stay healthy.
So the last one that in that conference anyway that's still up for grabs is Delvin Cook, another running back that he's been linked to Miami, Buffalo. He's been linked to the Patriots. He's been linked to the Jets. Any thoughts about that, Keith?
I'm not a big Delvin Cook fan. I think he's one of those guys who's quickly started the downhill side of his career in my mind. He'll have some big plays, but there's a lot of also, 2 yards into the line of scrimmage plays with him. I don't like him coming into the Patriots only because I think we've got a guy who's going to merge, especially if he's given the chance, into a top 10 running back in the league in Stevenson. He's a great, great player, and I don't want to take touches away from him, that many touches away from him. You can't run guys 25, 30 times a game anymore, but I'm okay with their supporting cast, assuming Stevenson stays healthy. Now, if he gets hurt, then that was a stupid thing for me to say because we don't have a quality back to assume that duties. But I don't see the fit there. Listen, he might fit the Jets better because I don't, they may not want to bring Breece Hall. I always mix those two guys up. Is it Bryce or Breece? Breece. They may not want to give him the heavy workload, especially early on coming off that knee surgery. And their backup, whose name is escaping me at the moment.
Michael Carter.
Right. Carter kind of fell backwards last year in the sophomore season. So to me, maybe the best fit in the division is the Jets, but again, I don't know if they have the money. He's another guy. He wants 3 years and he wants a bunch of money. So I don't know that he's going to get it.
Wait, I don't understand. What is wrong with having two really good backs? I don't get it. They can coexist. Look at the 49ers.
Can they? Delvin Cook is used to being the guy and getting the ball 20 times a game. Can he just sit there and get the ball seven times a game and be happy?
whoever's producing gets the ball more. It's that simple.
Again,
Well,
I don't think they're going to pay him the money he wants either. He wants guaranteed money. He wants 3 years. He wants.
I mean, even at Cleveland, even with the two backs there, we knew who was
Chubbs and Hunt, yeah, but
we knew Chubbs.
I thought they coexisted.
They did, but Chubbs was the main running back.
Clearly the number one guy. Yeah.
So I mean, in fact, the other one's looking for another team right now. So we'll see what happens with that. The Knicks, of course, Summer League is the only thing that's really going on right now. There's no major trades or anything. Last thing I heard was maybe that we were going to get the Celtics, their other guard there. I'm trying to remember his name now. That we might get him in, huh?
Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown and Dillard's going to Miami. That's the last thing I heard about that, but I don't think that's going to happen. No. But they did have outstanding performer in their last game. They had a kid, well, not a kid, he's 28 years old, QJ Peterson, who spent 2022 and 2023 in the China League. He led the Knicks on a comeback win with 25 points and 6 rebounds. Are any of these kids in Summer League, are any of these guys going to make the starting team, Keith?
Yeah, starting team, no. I mean, they're going to come to camp and maybe battle for a roster position, but they're not going to start. Hopefully, you hope that one of these kids can come and provide some depth. I mean, they had a Brown, too, that played well in the Summer League, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And look at the Knicks. Maybe you may be seeing the core of what the Knicks team is going to be right now. I do hear, by the way, that they're a little down on Quentin Grimes. I'm not sure exactly why. And he may be
a guard position because of all the guards they got the guard back up.
That's the problem. Somebody's got to go, right? They've even mentioned Barrett and Quickly in the trade for the kid from Toronto.
Right.
I'll say his name horribly wrong, so I won't even try to say it. But I mean, he's a nice player, but I don't know that I want to give up on these two kids.
Yeah,
so this might be a victim of numbers. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of guards for the Knicks right now.
And the Knicks win just running it back, not doing anything, playing with the roster as constituted as it is now, because the NBA East is kind of open.
It is, and I think
open in a way.
I think they can make a run. Are they good enough to get through the East to the championship series? I'm not so sure, but I mean they did make some moves. DiVincenzo will be a nice addition to this team, I think. They like this other kid too, and his name's escaping me too. He's played well in the Summer League. He's going to be the backup to Randall most likely with Toppin gone. And I apologize because this morning everybody's name's escaping me. I'm having Jack Hirsch moment. But I think the Knicks, look at this. The East is not as strong as what it was last year. The Celtics won't be as good. Without Marcus Smart. Porzingis won't play as much as they think. The Heat, if the Heat find a way to get Lillard, well, now things change, and you've obviously got a very big front runner. But I think the Knicks are good enough now to compete for the
conference title.
The top spot.
I agree with that. Real quick, we'll go through the major league scores. The Cubs beat Boston 10-4. Philly takes a doubleheader. Phillies just keep pouring it on. 6-4, 9-4. The Dodgers beat the Mets 5-1. As we talked, the Yanks beat the Colorado Rockies 6-3. Right now in the East, you got Tampa Bay still in first place at 16-35. Baltimore at 56-35. Toronto. Yes. Toronto 52-41. The Yanks move out of last place at 50-43. Boston at 49-44. Still probably the most competitive division in the either league. Central Minnesota hanging in there over 500, 47-46. Texas in first, 54-35. Houston's starting to come on. They're at 51-42. So the biggest news, of course, is Shohei Ohtani. They're listening to offers. Isn't it just going to be a rental for this year? Don't they have to sign him to an extension? I mean,
look, if I'm any team, I've told Yankee fans who are excited, well, let's bring him in here. And I'm like, well, I can't bring him in here and trade some of my top prospects unless I got some kind of guarantee he's going to be here after this year. And that's probably not going to happen. You're not going to get that. I don't even think he wants to come play on the East Coast myself. But, it is mostly a rental.
Just
Remember, the Padres still haven't extended Soto, so that trade could still blow up in their face because they may not get him for more than another year, but they may not get him long term.
Keith, I think it's more than just
and real quick before we bring Robert up, the Naylor brothers. So anyway, before I bring up Robert, I brought him up. The Naylor brothers, Bo and Josh, multi-home runs in the same inning, first time in history or something like that. That's never happened in baseball. So that's pretty cool.
It's happened with a father and a son, but never brothers.
No, they're brothers, never brothers. So Keith Engle, I know he's got to go do his show. Check him out, TGI Sports Talk. And Robert will fill in for Keith for a half hour. Keith, have a good one.
Hello, Robert.
Hey, Keith. Good to see you again, buddy.
Take care, Keith.
You guys have a good Sunday.
All right. Robert, how you doing today, buddy?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Hanging right in there, Robert. We've got some really stories that I kind of dug up that maybe other people aren't paying attention to, and that's why I bring you in here, because you go right at it, you research it, and you enlighten us about some of the things that happen, some of the things we're going to talk about. First, Robert, let's talk about the Major League Baseball. I mean, we just had the All-Star game.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like the All-Star game anymore. I think it's, we talked about this on Saturday on our show. I think it's probably the truest All-Star game there is. There's no gimmicks or nothing. They play the game. There's no touch football. And so I enjoy what they're doing anyway. And what do you think about the All-Star game? And what are your thoughts on the MLB? I heard something about maybe more teams, and what's going on over there?
Oh, I don't know about the All-Star game per se, but I'm like, I do think it is the best of the others. I mean, if you think about the NBA All-Star game, there's no defense. The Pro Bowl, people don't like it. It's got ratings, but players try to get out of playing it. Used to be a big deal. Remember, they'd go to Hawaii and all that, and so it really is a more. It used to be actually meaningful, but I thought that was a little much. I mean, because it's taken away from the whole team, and for getting the home field advantage. But I mean, it's fun. It's the kids like when I really liked the home run derby when I was a kid. I mean, it was awesome, and I think that the home run derby may be the most watch. I think people still talk about the home run derby. They don't really talk about the slam dunk anymore. Remember back in the 90s with Jordan and D. Brown pumping up his Reebok pumps, and then Jordan's like, okay, it's on now. Now, okay, so you're pumping up Reebok and doing that kind of
I think at one time in the dunk contest, the stars participated more than they do now. Now you hear this kid that's on the bench is the one that won the All-Star game. You don't have LeBron and the rest of these guys doing the dunk anymore. So I think that's why it's lost some of its luster. So I agree with you there. Big news tomorrow. Who's going to be tagged? Who's going to sign a contract? We got Barkley, we got Jacobs, we got Ingram out there right now. Three of the bigger names. What are your thoughts? What's going to happen tomorrow, Robert?
Well, part of me wants to say that Barkley's going to sign because he's been the most talked about, but he also seems to be the most dug in. This was said, I screenshotted this. This was back a few months ago. Let's see if I can read this to you guys. He accused the Giants of misleading and untruthful leaks about negotiations for reports he turned down deals of a $12.5 billion to $13 million. Barkley said those reports tried to make me look like I'm greedy, adding that he is not trying to reset the running back market. Remember, he wanted something more closer to Christian McCaffrey type of signing. So part of me thinks, well, that number's out there. Maybe they'll get it done. The other part thinks, well, he's kind of dug in because they paid Daniel Jones so much that he feels like he's a bigger part of that organization. But Tony Pollard is the only one that I know of signed that. Of the running backs, it's gotten real talk of signed his franchise. Now his franchise tag. Now he's getting over an ankle injury, but he may be the one most likely to sign if anybody signs on Monday. It's something I'm watching too. I'll cover that Monday.
I think Tony Pollard signed. He already came to an agreement with the Cowboys. So because he knows he's coming off an injury. Is the Giant front office maybe dug in? It seems they want Saquon Barkley back. They want him signed, but they don't want to interfere with their own front office. They're letting their front office do their job. But I get the feeling the front office is basically given an ultimatum: get this deal done. And they're waiting till the last moment, and then maybe I think how it's going to play out, they're eventually going to give in to Saquon Barkley, give him what he wants for the most part, and get it done. I'd be surprised if that didn't happen, if Saquon Barkley caved in.
Yes, and this group did not draft Barkley. That was Dave Gettleman. So maybe that's probably why they haven't extended him, Jack. That's food for thought.
But when ownership is fond of a player, that plays a big role in it. That puts a certain pressure on the others who didn't draft the player.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we all think he'll sign with the Giants. As Jack said, he's a captain. He's a face of the franchise. It's a little bit more than just football. And all he's asking for, Robert, is what he would be getting if he franchised for 2 years. He just wants the $22.1 million guaranteed, like he would get for the following 2 years if he was franchised 2 years in a row. So I don't think that's
it won't break the bank. If those numbers wouldn't break the bank, I just as long as you don't pay him 22 or 25 million. I mean,
a year,
receiver money.
Yeah. There was a running back, Eichel, for the San Diego. I always call him the San Diego Chargers. The Chargers. He said to Barkley he should dig in. He should be one of the ones that dig in and hold his ground. And yet he signed the franchise tag. So it's like,
was it Austin Eckler?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So he's telling him to dig in while he signed the franchise tag. So there you go. That's really good.
Yeah.
Big Wimbledon news, Robert.
Yeah.
The first unseeded woman wins Wimbledon.
Yeah, it tells you how quiet I haven't been following the women's game the last few years. It's not the Williams sisters years. There's a lack of star power now. I know that I can't remember her name, Osaki, the Japanese. I remember she had a child. She's kind of quieting down that she was half Japanese, half black. She was really good at one time. And she's kind of, faded off. She's got some personal things going on. Maybe she could come back. She's still fairly young, 24, I want to say. But it kind of shows you that, hey, sometimes the big sports have their lows. I remember the ratings really dipped when Michael Jordan retired temporarily from the NBA. So it's ebbs and flows in each sport. But it's good to see a player that worked hard come out of nowhere, too. It's kind of a storyline there if you want to look at it that way.
I mean, at least it caught headlines for Wimbledon.
Yeah,
you got a big one. I didn't write this down, but you got a pretty big match today. I know Jack probably following this, where the number one player in the world.
Yeah, Jokic. They're playing right now. I mean,
right.
I don't.
Yeah,
should get an update. Yeah.
So he's playing a guy that's having a big underdog too. Who's if he beats Jokic, it would be a huge upset. So that's something. Wimbledon is one of the biggest things happening right now.
I love Wimbledon. I used to really follow it in the late 90s and early 2000s. I mean, I didn't think anybody could ever return Sampras' serve at Wimbledon until Roger Federer came along.
Yeah.
It starts at 9 o'clock.
Was 8 o'clock? Yeah, that's
time.
okay.
Yeah,
I was fixing to say I thought it was going to start, but I get these times mixed up, man.
Well, Carlos Alcaraz, who Jokic is playing, is actually rated number 1 in the world, and Jokic technically is number 2.
Okay. All right. So Jokic is the underdog going into this match. Interesting.
I wouldn't say it's the underdog. I mean, if he wins this, it's his 5th Wimbledon title in a row, and it would be 8 overall. He'd tie Roger Federer for the most Wimbledon wins. So you can never call a guy like him an underdog.
Gotcha.
Really? I know.
We have LeBron coming back next year, and he's trading in his jersey out of, was retired because of Bill Russell. He's going to take number 23 back. What's your thoughts about LeBron coming back next year? Do you think
I thought he was going to retire. Excuse me. I thought he was going to retire, guys. The way he was talking at the end of that last series, holding his foot, but he did have 40 points in the last game. So there's got to be a discussion. He's pushing 40 about his minutes, and you just wonder how that's going to play out. They've got a young team around him, but you're dealing with Anthony Davis, who's often injury prone, and then you got LeBron at 40, who's going to take up that slack because they're going to miss, 22, 25 games. He's played 56 and 55 the last 2 years. I don't think he's going to go up. So he ain't getting any younger.
Well, we knew he wasn't going to retire. He keeps saying he wants to play with Bronny. Bronny's going to college next year, and he thinks Bronny will play 1 year at college, then maybe, enter the NBA draft, get drafted, and LeBron will be a free agent, and he'll go wherever Bronny goes. I mean, wouldn't this be ironic? Let's say, hypothetically, a team drafts Bronny, and they don't want LeBron. They just don't want to sign him. He can't go where he wants. Can you imagine that?
What team would not?
I wonder what he'll ask for.
Let's say no one that doesn't like him, like a James Dolan, and says, I'm not getting LeBron coming to the Knicks, but LeBron will make it hard for a team not to sign him because LeBron will take the league minimum. So that calls a known as bluff. How can any team say, we don't want LeBron if he's taking the league minimum? That's insane.
Do you believe
that and coming off the bench too? Probably.
Yeah. Do you believe LeBron?
No, he wouldn't come off the bench.
Do you believe that LeBron James would take the league minimum?
He said he would if push came to shove.
I don't know. I don't know if he would do that. I mean, this is a superstar. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be interesting if all that comes forth. If the kid comes out after 1 year, and if maybe he doesn't want to play with LeBron. How about if the son doesn't want to play with him?
No, what happens if a son loves college after 1 year?
Yeah.
Right.
Wants to come back for a second year because his son signed a contract for a lot of money. In this day and age, elite college athletes can do it.
Right.
So he has his own financial security to an extent. And of course, there's the family empire, all the money there. So this isn't a hardship thing where to come out for the draft. He might love the college life and might want to come back for a second year. And is he going to feel pressure because his dad wants to play with him? And then let's say LeBron plays with Bronny. LeBron has another son, Bryce, who's supposedly a little better than Bronny, who's 16. And in a couple of years, he's going to be 18. And LeBron's going to think, boy, I would love to play with Bronny and Bryce together, or both of them at one time. but what LeBron has to go through as an athlete to get ready for these games, he has a big body. It's a lot of hard work. It's not just physically, it's so mentally taxing to put himself through this, like for another year and then a year after that. We can't feel what LeBron is going through, but it's really hard.
Yeah, it's a lot of travel and who's it? Adonis Haslem. I mean, he just retired. He's been riding the bench for Miami for a few years. He's over 40 as well. Maybe he takes a role like that if his sons are there. They could be a mentor.
LeBron is still a heck of a player, Rob. Why are we putting him out to pasture? He's still a terrific player, even if he slips. Let's say LeBron starts slipping and declining. He's still going to be better than average. Maybe not good anymore at a certain point, but he's going to be better than average a few years from now. 4 years from now, he's going to be a better than average player.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that when you start getting in that 50-plus game, he's going to have to start monitoring his minutes. I mean, he's not Superman.
Yeah.
He's not going to play 70 games next year. I'll tell you that.
I would be surprised if he did. I sent Robert on a research story here. They called him the little Korean. Back then, I guess that you wouldn't call him that anymore. But they called him a little Korean. He was a soccer player. A little soccer player, was quick, and he was pretty good. Do you know what? And all of a sudden, he just disappeared. Robert, do you know what happened to him?
Yeah. I'll do a Korean soccer segment on Tuesdays on my program.
That's a shock.
They sent me that. I'm like, man, you're killing me, Smalls.
Oh man. Best way to shut me up. Talk about Korean soccer. I mean, shut me down completely.
He played in the nationals against other countries. But any word of where
it
he's
is a weird story. He's still missing. I looked into it, and it did say North Korea, so you just never know that he left the dictatorship down there. It's still a weird story. He's been missing since the 4th of July.
Right.
And last I read it, he was somewhere in Italy. So it's weird, you know.
It is. I figured you'd be able to figure this one out, Robert.
I know it.
Sources over there in Italy. I mean, what's said?
International soccer sources.
Yeah. He was a star there for Korea, and then it just, I don't know if he ticked off the leader or what happened there, or maybe he just wanted to get out of Korea. That could be one too. Maybe he just wanted to get back out of Korea, which I would imagine.
Right.
You know, so the 3-point shot has replaced the slam dunk, Robert. You know, we saw, I don't know if you saw the WNBA shooter there. I'm trying to remember her name right now. I do have it somewhere. She set a record there for NBA and for WNBA at the same time. Curry was there. Who's the best 3-point shooter? Is it them or is it somebody else, Robert?
You know, when I think about women's, I think about Caitlin Clark, and you know, you could tell she looks up to Steph Curry, guys. Remember that championship? She's throwing them shots. Those are men's professional 3-point shots. That makes me think about that. I mean, probably Curry still. If you're looking at the NBA, it's I'm a big follower of the Big Three, the Ice Cube's 3-on-3 tournament. Comes on CBS. It's been out for about 6 years now, and some of the deep threes are considered 4-point shots. You know, and I thought, you know, when a guy like Steph Curry, if he could talk him into playing, it's just a summer league game. It's nothing. Curry could make those easy, and they're nowhere near the half court mark that he takes. But you know something, I was reading this and talking about this on my program a few weeks ago, that teams are finally getting away from just trying to be like the Golden State Warriors. We're bringing back with Joker, Giannis, the mid-range game. Everything's not a layup or a three. It seems to be somewhat of a fad. The three's always going to be there, but it's not going to be the shot. You know, we saw Boston fall. They lived by, they died by the three. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I mean, they say three points is better than the 2-point shot, but you got to be hot and make those threes or you're going to lose the game.
You got to fall, right?
Right. So I mean, it's half dozen one, half dozen the other.
Yeah.
And there's better 3-point defenses out there now too. They're challenging the 3-point shot where they were guarding down low before, and they're challenging the 3-point shots more than they did before. So that's another reason why the downtake. You got any of the big stories out there, Robert, that we can talk?
I tell you what, guys, this Hard Knocks story. For Jets fans, Quentin Williams signing his extension. If you recall, back in 2010, Darrelle Revis was a holdout. That was one of the main focal points of the Hard Knocks series. He signed, and I'll totally endorse it. I'll talk about championship teams like Aaron Jones. Nobody talks about how big a play he's had for the Kansas City Chiefs over the last few years. Aaron Donald, Vita, who played with Tampa. That's the last 3 Super Bowl champions. You want to have the nose of the ball taken care of defensively. That'd be a big pat on the back for Jim Jeffcoat here if he was here. But I'm watching that storyline for the New York Jets. Also, the battle of the offensive line. And let me make sure I've got this right. Micaiah Becton and Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown, he cited in as playing the 37-year-old returning left tackle, going to battle Micaiah Becton, who wants to play left tackle. Says when he was moved to right tackle, helped him get injured, messed with his knee because he was putting that weight on the other side. He supposedly had a great rookie year, and that should be a vocal point because they're protecting Aaron Rodgers. So I think that's a huge story, guys. And it
No,
will be.
that's great stuff. It really is. And even though they should focus on all that, let's be honest. The reason the Jets are on Hard Knocks is because of Aaron Rodgers. And
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers isn't too happy about it because he knows he's not just going to be another guy. He's going to be the focal point. I mean, you leave it up to the Hard Knocks, they're going to have Aaron prominently in just about every episode. They're going to be following him around. And he doesn't seem to be the type of guy who likes how he's going to get portrayed. And the coaches are going to have to be very careful what they say, how they joke around every move made. And because Aaron Rodgers is a sensitive type, reportedly he's getting along fine with the coaching staff right now. It just takes one little remark for one of the coaches to make to kind of turn, Aaron Rodgers off.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see Aaron Rodgers' level of cooperation during this show.
I think that they were so reluctant, guys. This is the last, the longest date, last minute. Nobody wanted to do it. This is usually announced months ahead of time, several weeks prior to this. I think that there's so much reluctance that I believe that everybody's going to be actually extra focused because of this. And it'll probably bring the Jet team together. I'm not saying that because you're here.
Rob, I don't know whether you know the answer to this or not, because I certainly don't. Did the Jets have an option of turning it down? My guess is they didn't have an option. So I kind of feel this was maybe pushed to the deadline because HBO insisted on it being the Jets. Because let's be honest, the Jets are the biggest attraction here by far because of Aaron Rodgers moving from the Packers to the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers wasn't the Jet quarterback, let's say it was someone like a Kirk Cousins, the Jets wouldn't be nearly as appealing.
No, and see, they got to change this criteria. It's teams that didn't make the playoffs the year before, and I think they should try to put more focus on teams that won the Super Bowl or something, but they don't want to. They haven't done that since the show came out originally about 20-something years ago when the Ravens won the Super Bowl back in 2000. So it's an interesting thing. I do think that the Jets are going to be really on guard and they're going to be extra focused because of this. And everybody on the Jets team, I mean, you got Sauce Gardner. He's going to be featured. He's a big personality. Yeah. Garrett Wilson. I mean, there's a lot of story. I'm actually going to order HBO for like a month, guys.
Really? Really? I've never watched Hard Knocks. I've never been interested in the drama that goes on, and I know a lot of it's fake anyway because they're doing it for the cameras. But do they follow them all through the year, or is it just training camp? Do they follow them all the way through the NFL season?
Yeah, it's just training camp up to week 1, Mac. Okay. About 4 weeks, yeah.
Okay, so
the part I don't understand, guys, and Rob, Mac, when a player's called into the office to be told he's cut, I can't imagine that being on camera spontaneously. And, it's kind of violating the player being called in saying, look, you can catch on with another team. You're this, you're that, you're this, you're that, but you're cut. I wouldn't want to be on camera getting cut.
Well, they do get a lot of sympathy, and it gets the guys, people asking about it, and reporters it kind of helps them get picked up with other squads because people are looking at them and say, well, we kind of like what he's doing. He seems to be a hard worker, and he's on so-and-so's practice squad. And I remember following the Lions players all the way up to the week and a half before and throughout the season, seeing what happened to this third-string quarterback because, his girlfriend was competing in the Olympics or something. And also, Mac, they do have now, the last 2 years, they have an in-season Hard Knocks. It starts in November. And that's been a disaster.
I can imagine.
The coach has been fired.
I can imagine.
Arizona and Indianapolis.
Yes.
Both of those coaches were fired.
Yeah. Well, that curse, they always talk about that curse for the coaches,
yeah.
Robert. Every coach has been fired that's been on Hard Knocks all the way back to the beginning. So I don't know. Well, all the way back to the Ravens, 2001.
Certain things the league shouldn't require. You see these coaches in other sports like football, basketball. They want to get into the locker room at halftime and they asked a couple of questions, and you could tell they can't wait to leave. They don't want to be there. Because the second the interview's done, the smile leaves their face and they're rushing away.
Yeah, especially Bill Belichick, right?
And they really don't give an answer. Like, how's it going now? What are you going to do with your defense? Well, we got to play harder. What are you doing with your offense? We got to score more points. Bye. Yeah, that's.
Well, Rob mentions Bill Belichick. If the Jets weren't going to be on Hard Knocks, I think the Patriots would have been a decent attraction, perhaps.
Oh yeah, the most secretive team getting exposed. That would have been. Oh man, he would have really, really been kicking and screaming on that one.
Yeah.
I think he might have. So, Robert, anything else you got for us, my friend?
Well, I tell you what, guys, I'm out of Nashville. I followed University of Tennessee football, and they got violations on Jeremy Pruitt. Now, he was fired. I thought it was because he was just a bad coach. He was 16-19. Didn't really care for the guy. He was kind of a last-minute hire, like a 5th or 6th choice, known as an air quote good recruiter. He's got Tennessee was fined $8 million, and he's got a 6-year show clause for paying the players. Darnell Washington was one of the players. He ended up going to Georgia, winning 2 national championships. Now he's with the Steelers, and the guy still didn't go to Tennessee, and he still didn't have a winning record. So I thought that was a pretty interesting. Tennessee dodged a bullet by firing him and taking care of this early. They had some wins vacated, but they were terrible those years anyways.
Right, and they let him play in the playoffs too, right, Rob? From what I understand,
yes, there's no bowl ban. There's no future bowl ban for Tennessee. Won 11 games under Josh Heupel last year, first time since 2001.
Yeah, so that's good.
It's a great move getting rid of Jeremy Pruitt.
They must have knew something else was going on besides them losing games. They probably had a feeling something. You hear things. So, all right, Robert. Well, I want to thank you for coming in. He does every Sunday. Robert Butler from Skope. Check him out. Instagram, on his site. He's all over the place. Just look up Skope with a K, and you'll see Robert Butler. Thanks again, Robert.
Have a good show, guys.
You too.
Take care, Rob. Good stuff. Thanks.
All right, folks, Robert Butler. So we're going to take our promotions break to check out some of the great shows on Northeast Streaming Sports, and we'll be right back, folks.
If you like the sweet science, get ready to talk boxing on the Gloved Fist podcast with top boxing writers Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Frank, a former amateur boxer out of Philadelphia, writes for NY Fights and can be seen on the Boxing Channel. Jack, an amateur boxer who competed in the New York Golden Gloves, was a 6-term president of the Boxing Writers Association. And now, here's Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. He was a giant, and he was a cowboy. Now these two former rivals have joined forces to bring you the most insightful, perceptive, and controversial sports talk podcast in America. Former Dallas Cowboys defensive end Jim Jeffcoat locks horns with former New York Giants wide receiver Byron Williams. And now, here's Byron Williams and Jim Jeffcoat. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start spreading the news, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
See right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Jack Hirsch should be coming in right now. There you go. There's Jack. So welcome back. And we just had on Robert Butler from Sports Skope, as we do every Sunday.
That Robert Butler comes up with good stuff, Mac.
Doesn't he?
Good stuff. I mean, listen, I'm a little over my head, when he's on, like, talking about Korean, bocce ball or whatever sport he was talking about. I was lost there.
Yeah, he's quite the digger up there. He's definitely
he digs stuff up.
He does. So last report, that little Korean guy was in Italy. So where he was lately. If anybody is watching our program over in Italy, comment, message us, let us know if you've seen him lately. Let's get back to football, Jack, where we were before the guests started coming in. Your buddy Sam Darnold, he says why he wanted to sign with the 49ers, even to compete with Birdie and Lance. He says the receivers just get open, and they have a very talented team. So, he does have a shot, I think, Jack. I mean, Purdy, if he gets hurt or if he has some bad games, you might see Sam Darnold come in.
I have a question I want to ask you, Matt. Okay? They got Sam Darnold now. They have Brock Purdy, who's going to be healthy at some point during the year, maybe by opening game. Right. And they got Trey Lance, who they invested a lot in, who you think the 49er front office would like for him to win the job if he can. Okay? They're not going to give it to him unless he earns it at this point. Between those three quarterbacks, next year, not this year, when the smoke clears, because we don't know how it's going to play out short term right now. Who do you think's going to be the last man standing and be the 49er quarterback? Unless the answer is none of the above. That's a multiple choice question. Purdy, Darnold, Lance, or none of the above by next season for the 49ers.
I think Purdy, if he doesn't get hurt. So that's a big if.
You think Purdy? Purdy's a popular choice with players like their tight end George Kittle because they won with him during the regular season, and they don't hold it against him. The NFC Championship game because he was injured. Right. But I'm going to give you my answer. I think it's going to be Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold has the most upside amongst the three, the most experience. Trey Lance just might not be that good. I'm not saying he's not good enough to hold a roster spot and be a quarterback in the league. Maybe not a starter. And I think Brock Purdy's upside is kind of limited. He played wonderfully last year. I give him a ton of credit. But moving forward, he's strictly a game manager. He's not the type of quarterback to make plays.
Right.
He could play within a very tight system. He's going to have to rely on, McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, etc. to make plays, Kittle to make plays. I think Sam Darnold is more of a playmaker than Brock Purdy. It has more upside. That's why I think by next year, or before this year's out, Sam Darnold's going to have established himself as the 49ers starting quarterback. And when the 49ers go into the playoffs this season, I believe they are a playoff team. It's just a question of how far they'll go. Sam Darnold is going to be their quarterback.
I mean, you make a valid point. The only thing is I don't think Sam Darnold is meant for that system. It's a running, they may have a lot of weapons, but it's a running game. They don't want a big playmaker to make mistakes. And I think Darnold is one of those guys that's going to try to push the ball downfield, and I think he'll make mistakes. I think they'll feel safer with Purdy than they would with Sam Darnold. And it's nothing against Sam Darnold, because I think Sam Darnold could be a starting quarterback on some team. I think there's teams out there that don't, they say there's not a lot of openings of first-string quarterback. I disagree. There are some openings where a really good sort of a gunslinger could make his mark. I think Sam Darnold has a chance with another team. I think
but in all fairness, Max, Sam Darnold had the starting position for the Jets and the Carolina Panthers and didn't hold on to either one, even though the Jets were thinking of not drafting Zach Wilson and just sticking with Sam Darnold. They were seriously thinking of that, but they felt they needed a change of scenery in the quarterback position. And they did lose the starting job with the Panthers, who gave up a lot to get him. They gave up a second, a fourth, and a sixth-round draft choice to get Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite work out.
So let's go back for a minute. What do you think what would have happened if they did not, draft Zach Wilson and kept Sam Darnold? What do you think? Do you think the Jets, they probably wouldn't have got Aaron? Well, maybe they would have got Aaron Rodgers. It depends how Sam Darnold did. But what do you think? What do you think the Jets would have had a better record last year?
Yeah, I do think. I mean, I don't think they would have been a playoff team. They wound up being 7-10. Would they have won an extra game? Yeah, perhaps. I mean, could they have gone 9-8? Maybe. I don't think so. You want to know something, Mac? Zach Wilson, as bad as he was perceived to be, he did have a winning record as Jet quarterback. That's the odd part about it. He did have a winning record as Jet quarterback, but he performed poorly in a couple of games, really dreadfully, not just poorly. Yeah, they would have maybe been a game better. I don't think it would have made a difference in the long run. I think the Jets would have veered to Aaron Rodgers regardless.
Yeah, I think so too. I think.
I don't think because keep in mind, Sam Darnold went to, like I said a moment ago, he went to the Carolina Panthers and didn't hold on to the starting job. And who did the Panthers bring in? Baker Mayfield. Come on. Yeah. And Baker didn't hold on to the job. And now Baker is getting his third opportunity. First Cleveland, in which, if Cleveland didn't get Deshaun Watson, they were thinking of sticking with Baker Mayfield for fifth season as their starter.
Yeah.
And so now Baker's with Tampa Bay. Is that a good situation for Baker Mayfield, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I don't think so either.
I think it'll be worse than last year, Jack. They got to get rid of some players that.
Well, they weren't that bad. They made the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
But they were a declining team. They don't look to be a playoff team at all this year.
I guess if you want to be a starting quarterback, you take what you can get too, Jack. Right?
Oh, no. It's great to get those positions.
Yeah.
It's not a question settling. I mean, those jobs are like gold, but just the idea that Baker Mayfield, he went to the Rams, so this is actually his fourth team, like Carolina, traded him off to the Rams, and he played well filling in for Matthew Stafford. And the Rams were interested in bringing him back. They wanted him back as Stafford's backup, figuring if Stafford can't play, Baker's a good alternative. They were happy with him there. And that's why maybe Tampa Bay's now taking a chance on him to start for them. And they put him in a competition with Kyle Trask, a quarterback who they drafted 30th overall after they won the Super Bowl. But Tom Brady was so solidly entrenched in the position, it wasn't a slap in the face to Brady to draft a quarterback, because Brady knew it was his position basically as long as he could perform at a semi-level of what he was.
I agree. Will Baker be the next Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jack? Will he move around?
That is a great question. Wow. Because Tampa Bay is like Baker's fourth team.
Yeah.
I could see Baker, when all is said and done, maybe not having what's Fitzpatrick on, about 11 teams?
Yeah, 11, 12 teams or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lesser quarterback, Josh Johnson, who's been on about 12 teams. I think the 49ers signed the comeback for practice squad, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, maybe not the Niners, and maybe he went back to a team he was at before. He's been with so many teams.
Yeah, but he wasn't a starter. He's not like Fitzpatrick or Baker where, they could start for different teams at certain times.
But it's amazing, certain quarterbacks, if you hang around the league, Mac, long enough, and you could be a backup for years. You could come into the league as a starter prospect. Then they could decide you just don't have what it takes to lead a team, but you're good enough to be a backup. And all of a sudden you could find yourself in a lucrative starting position again, like Geno Smith. Geno Smith went from a Jet starter to the scrap heap to Buffalo, where it didn't work out. He went to the Giants, where it didn't work out. And, and when all was said and done, he winds up in Seattle as a backup to Russell Wilson. Wilson moves on. Geno Smith is given an opportunity, and he had a really good year. But Geno Smith isn't viewed as a franchise quarterback per se. he's the Seattle starter, but they're going to do it year by year.
Right.
They like Drew Lock, their backup. They
Right.
like his potential a lot. But I think Seattle is going to have a good year this year, and I think Geno could have a very good year. Meaning, what's Geno going to do next year? Let's say Seattle goes to the Super Bowl, which they very well might. They very well might. I'm not discounting them. I'm not saying they're going to get there yet. I got to sit down and analyze that a little more, my final predictions. But if they go to a Super Bowl, Geno's not going to get a lucrative quarterback contract. Even if it was Super Bowl MVP, I don't think a team would invest 3 years in Geno at big guaranteed money. So I think it would be a puzzling situation where he would get a nice contract for 1 year. And he's always going to be on that trial basis because his history and his body of work doesn't show that you could trust him to be a franchise quarterback long term.
Well, when he was with the Giants, he played well when he did play. He was run out of town basically by the fans who,
he didn't play. No, he didn't.
He played okay, Jack. He wasn't the reason the Giants lost the game.
Did you have at any point? Did you feel, wow, I'll be happy if Geno's my starting quarterback from now on and
not really.
Close. You never felt
really.
that way.
Not really. I'm just saying it's because Eli got benched. It was why there was such a big uproar. That's why they got rid of him. I mean, he was a good second string quarterback. I don't know why they
Exactly. Look, Geno was the starter for the Jets. He didn't hold on to the position. He was the starter for the Buffalo Bills. He couldn't hold on to the position. It doesn't mean you can't start again, but once you're given 2 opportunities somewhere and you can't hold on to the position, it kind of tells you a little something that maybe you can still start. Maybe you could be a very good quarterback in the league, but it's got to be the circumstances now have to play into your favor. A team isn't going to automatically make you their guy and have patience with you.
Yeah. Look, he did a great job for Seattle last year, and I expect Seattle to be good this year too.
I think he's going to have a good season this season, Geno Smith for Seattle.
Let's stay on football for now. Of course, we talked about this on Friday. The Giants have 6 guys that could get in the Super Bowl. They're up for it. Tom Coughlin, we talked about. We kind of think he should be going in there.
Yeah.
If you think about Otis Anderson, and I remember after he was a Super Bowl MVP, Parcells says you might have just got yourself into the Hall of Fame. Otis Anderson played for the Cardinals before he played with the Giants, and he was an awesome running back. When in his prime, he was one of the best running backs in the league. He goes to the Giants back in 85, 86. He goes to that Super Bowl. He goes to a second Super Bowl, Jack, and he's MVP. Does that give him cred to get in there?
Yeah, I would have to go back and study his body of work with the Cardinals. Okay, what he did before coming to the Giants. I'd really have to analyze that super carefully because certain players, they slip under the radar. They're not glamour players. And Otis Anderson, until he was a Super Bowl MVP, wasn't a glamour player.
Right.
But when when you consider what he may have done over those years with the Cardinals, and then the game he delivered in the Super Bowl against the Bills, I mean, the Giants probably don't win that game if he doesn't come up big. But then again, you think about your work. You think of a player like a Matt Snell. Did the Jets win the Super Bowl against the Colts if they can't control the game on the ground? 30 carries, 121 yards for Snell, 4 catches for 40 yards. It's the fullback in that game, his blocking. Otis Anderson, I'd have to study him out a little more. Off the top of my head, I would normally say no. Otis Anderson, very, very, very good player. Hall of Fame, I look for a great back. And I never viewed Otis Anderson as a great back. But sometimes body of work could get the job done.
Yeah, I listen, they have Banks. I don't think Banks is he went to 2 Super Bowls also. I think he played with too many great players. When you play with LT and Carson and Leonard Marshall and these other guys, even if you are great, You're kind of not, that's like Jack Ham with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He might even be in the Super Bowl. I'm not on the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure, but he played with a great defense, and Jack Ham was kind of underrated, like Carl Banks. I mean, would you? Good.
Did he make the other players better, Carl Banks, around him? Maybe they were better because they played with Carl Banks. To me, he's not a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, me either.
He's not a Hall of Famer. He's a very good player. Maybe I'm missing something, Mac. Hall of Famers should be for the great, great players, or players who are at least on the borderline of being truly great players. I mean, like LT, for example, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
He should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, certain New York athletes, Eli Manning, the 2 Super Bowl victories that he engineered the comeback. I mean, he was a great player under the highest pressure. And what works in Eli's favor, too, he had an Iron Man streak. He played game after game after game. He was always there playing a fixture. His body of work. Tom Coughlin, you mentioned before, he elevated the Jacksonville Jaguars. At the time he was coaching, the team, was better than they'd ever been.
Well, wasn't it a franchise? Weren't they a franchise team at the time?
Yeah, they were a franchise team, but they weren't as good after he left for a while.
Right.
So that's what I meant to say.
Right.
Certain guys, I mean, is it the Hall of the very good once again? I mean, that's what we have to, Otis Anderson, if we could have him now in his prime and have Saquon Barkley in the Giant backfield, who will we take? We'd probably take Saquon Barkley, but Barkley's certainly not a Hall of Fame at this point. He's got to prove it over a number of years.
I would have to go back and look at O.J. Anderson at the Cardinals in his prime. Was he a better back than Saquon Barkley? I don't know.
A different style player. Maybe it's a bad comparison.
Right.
One was a grinder. One was, dead out of the backfield, catching passes.
I would have to go.
Not a fair comparison.
I would have to go back and look at him because he was fast for a big guy. With the Cardinals, he was a great athlete. He slowed down. He got older with the Giants. Go ahead.
You talk about punishing backs. Derrick Henry, to me, is a Hall of Famer. Without question.
I think
so. Joe Klecko, to me, is a Hall of Famer. He was a force. Darrelle Revis is a Hall of Famer. That Darrelle Revis pretty easily.
Yeah,
because at one point, he was the best in the league, you could say.
Was Joe Klecko's career too short, though? That's the only thing I think of,
That's fair to review that, perhaps. Yeah. That's fair to review that. Mark Gastineau had image problems, so he's not going to get votes, on that.
Isn't Gastineau in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No.
I thought he was in. Okay. Yeah, there's not a lot of Jets in there, Jack. I don't know what's going on over there.
The Jets haven't been that good. I mean, John Riggins is in the Hall of Fame, but not as a Jet.
Yes. No, as a Redskin.
And Don Maynard, their receivers in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Maynard was a great receiver. You have to, look at how good guys are. If you put Maynard on the Giants now, he would be their number 1 receiver. You put him on the Jets, him and Garrett Wilson would be, pretty much equals. Now, I'm just giving you an example. Otis Taylor, the great Kansas City Chief receiver, is on the ballot this year. He absolutely should get in.
I agree.
Otis Taylor was great.
I agree. But he was on great teams. I mean, there's players to me that were just as good as Otis Taylor that were on a. Homer Jones is big, fast, strong, great receiver. If he was on the Kansas City Chiefs, he'd be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it does matter it matters what team you're on too, Jack. It really does.
It matters what quarterback you have. Otis Taylor had Lenny Dawson, a very good quarterback who is in the Hall of Fame. But Lenny Dawson wasn't really a thrower. I mean, he had a decent arm, but he wasn't a stretch the field guy necessarily. Yeah. I think Otis Taylor made him a better quarterback. Sure.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Let's see. Cowboys, they're negotiating with offensive lineman Terrence Steele for a new $50 million contract, hoping to make him a Cowboy for life. Those Cowboys love them offensive linemen, and they should.
You make me laugh. $50 million contract. I think of the Mets New York Mets signing Jeff McNeil before the year to a $50 million contract. It would either be 4 or 5 years, depending on the working. There was a player option, so if it's going to be for 4 years, McNeil was going to get $50 million. 5 years, he was going to get a shade on the 64. And McNeil was a batting champion, so it looked like, well, if he played a couple more years, became a free agent, or played one more year, he'd have more leverage, could get more than $50 million. But the way he's hitting now, it's good he signed that contract, okay? So the athletes, the lessons to be learned sometimes, take the money when you can. Don't assume you're going to be that good. You know, the only time you play really hardball, I think, is you already have enough money and you know you can get by. We talked that way about Saquon Barkley. I'm sure Saquon Barkley's played before. He might have a few million in his bank account. Let's assume he has a few million. But if Saquon Barkley could sit out a year and he'll get a 1-year deal next year, let's say at $10 million, hypothetically. So he could afford to play like a little hardball, you know, in the case. But a lot of athletes, you know, can't. Aaron Judge, when he was a free agent last year, the thought was, well, you signed a 1-year deal for close to $20 million. Let's say you could never play again. After taxes, you should have $10 million in the bank. You could take a little bit of a risk as opposed to someone who, you know, is paying his bills month to month.
Sure, and I imagine Saquon and Aaron Judge could make a living just off, you know, commercials and stuff like that.
No, not once he retired like that. No.
I mean, for a year, Jack.
Saquon can't make his money off commercials if he retires. Aaron Judge, as long as he's playing. You know,
well, that's what I mean. If you took a year off, they took a year off, I imagine they're commercial.
They're not going to make a commercial with Saquon Barkley if he's taking a year off.
Why not? What are you talking about?
No one's going to want to see the commercial. They're going to look at it with contempt.
He's making commercials right now, and it's not playing right now. Oh, get out of there.
Come on.
Oh, kid. He's popular enough to do that. Are you kidding me? Back to basketball. Chris Paul to the Warriors, Jack. What do you think about this? I mean, he's fallen off the last few years. He's not your three-point shooter. He's not a fast break player anymore. They're saying that maybe it's because he's so good at screens and pick and rolls, Jack. That's why they picked him.
Maybe because he's about 38 years old and his skills are declining.
That's why they picked him.
Maybe that's the reason. Mac, I never regarded Chris Paul as a great player. That's just my opinion. Obviously, he was always a very, very good player. Not he himself, I never looked at him as a game changer. I never put him quite in the category of, let's say, a Jason Kidd when Jason Kidd was in his prime. That's just me. But with that said, he's in a great spot now with the Golden State Warriors because he just has to facilitate. He's a veteran presence. How many minutes a night are they going to play him? I guess maybe about 28 minutes a night, 30 minutes a night, or thereabout, maybe 25 minutes a night. I don't know the exact minutes, but I'm in the range, I think, between 25 and 30 minutes. And his job is basically going to be to facilitate, run the offense a little more, use, his veteran smarts in there. And I think he's going to help the Warriors. The question is, do the Warriors have one more big season left in them? Klay Thompson, after initially making a nice comeback coming off the injury, kind of regressed. He wasn't that good last year. I don't know what his contract status is, Klay Thompson. It's hard to move on from a Klay Thompson because of the emotional impact he's had on that organization. So what are they going to work out with Klay Thompson contract-wise? Is Klay Thompson going to take a lot less money because he's going to want to be a career warrior? Or are they going is Golden State quietly hoping he moves on because they don't want to move on from him, because it's too hurtful. But yet again, they don't necessarily want him with the new version of the team they're going to set up. I just don't know. But notice they weren't as aggressive about re-signing Klay Thompson as they would Draymond Green.
I think the Warriors have made all bad moves here, Jack, and the GM I think has left. I don't know it's because they're going to make bad moves or because he knew it was coming down the road. Chris Paul, I don't see him helping the Warriors at all. So he's a point guard. There's plenty of point guards out there, a lot younger than Chris Paul. I don't think they should have signed either one. Draymond Green. I would have signed Draymond Green, and I would have let Klay Thompson I might have kept, but I would have let Draymond Green go. He's more of a problem than he is a help.
Well, he helped Phoenix a year ago. Phoenix did go to the NBA Finals, and after being up 2-0 against the Bucks, they blew the next 4 games. So he had them on the brink of a title. But Chris Paul staying with Phoenix, they were anxious to move on from him. He was at Houston before that, the Clippers before that. He's kind of moved around a bit. I mean, we criticize a player like Russell Westbrook who moved around a bit. But yet again, Chris Paul was given a little more of a pass. He's never been on a team that quite won an NBA championship. He didn't really coexist with James Harden.
Not at all.
When he, with Houston when he was there. They unachieved as teams with the LA Clippers. So I just don't know. Russell Westbrook, by the way, he came back to the Clippers. He loves it so much in LA and likes being with the Clippers so much. He signed a 2-year deal, Mac, for a total of $7.8 million.
Wow.
That's chump change for a guy like Russell Westbrook. Chump change to sign him for such a low amount of money. And he wasn't going to sign with anyone else for that low amount of money. But Russell Westbrook is probably looking at his bank account and saying, well, I have over $100 million. I have maybe $200 million I've put away, or whatever amount he has put away, probably closer to $200 million, figuring I have enough to last me the rest of my life comfortably. It's about enjoying myself now. So I'm willing to play for like a few million a year somewhere.
Yeah. Listen, Russell, I can't fault him for his hustle. That's for sure. That man also.
He plays the game hard. No. One thing about Russell Westbrook, say what you want about him. No one plays with more intensity than Russell Westbrook. He gives you everything he has on the court. I've been critical of him, saying his game is so dominating to an extent, like he's like a locomotive out of control. It doesn't fit into the team concepts. They don't win with Russell Westbrook. I'm hoping he proves me wrong.
Me too.
Not that he hears what I have to say, but if he somehow does, I'm rooting for him to have a laugh at my expense. Put me in my place, I'm rooting for him to make me look bad.
With all the stars out there, and Russell Westbrook is still a star. He's one of the hardest workers out there, Jack. There's no doubt about that. So he works for his money.
He could help it. The problem with Russell Westbrook, partly, he's been a great star in this league in the past. And when he was with OKC with Kevin Durant, they were neck and neck. We weren't saying who was better than who. Eventually, Durant goes elsewhere, and Durant is considered not only one of the best players in the league, but arguably one of the best ever. I'm not talking about a short list of the top 5. Like let's say a top 20 player of all time.
Hall of Fame.
Maybe a Hall of Famer for sure. Russell Westbrook's going to be in the Hall of Fame too. Yes. He's going to get there. But and all of a sudden, Russell Westbrook is going to other places. He's going to Houston. It's not working out there. He went going to the Washington Wizards. He's going to the LA Lakers. It's not quite completely working out. He's not being a difference maker,
right?
Over there in those situations. So he's no longer the big star players before, but he perceives himself as such. And it's hard for a guy like Russell Westbrook to be coming off the bench.
Right.
All of a sudden be told that you're a role player, even though it could be an important role, because he was a big name in the league.
Sure.
So maybe he's going to make that adjustment with the Clippers. I don't know. But the Clippers, I don't see where they're going. They have K.Y. Leonard, Paul George, Russell Westbrook.
They're trying to get harder.
Big three. James Harden wants to go there, but they're getting a few guys who are long in the tooth. Not necessarily K.Y. Leonard, but K.Y. Leonard has a hard time staying healthy.
Right.
Paul George has a hard time staying healthy, but he's a little past his prime a little bit. James Harden is past his peak, still good, but past his prime. And Russell Westbrook isn't quite the player he was. You have but then again, you might have like a George Allen over the hill gang like he had with the Redskins. But I don't think the Clippers made a serious threat to go to the finals without that crew of 4 future Hall of Famers who are, a little past it.
I agree. A lot of star power.
Have a good coach in Tyronn Lue there. He's a good coach.
That's true. That's true. A little bit of boxing, Jack. WBC title eliminator. Martin defeats, I'm just trying to say this, Artem Harutyunyan. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Harutyunyan. Good victory for Frank Martin. Frank Martin's a lightweight with a lot of promise. He's trained, Derek James, the same person who trains Errol Spence. A lot of potential. Errol Spence has been involved in Frank Martin's career. He's kind of been a little bit of a mentor to him. And I've seen Frank Martin fight from ringside. A big talent. When the other stars in the lightweight division kind of move out of the lightweight division, Frank Martin's projected to be slotted in as one of boxing's, stars of the future. He's getting there.
Okay. Gervonta Davis is out of jail and ready to resume his career, Jack. So there you go. He's out of jail.
I don't get this, Mac. I get the feeling that judges and prosecutors sometimes could be scared for their own safety. I'm getting that feeling. Maybe I'm wrong here. I'm not saying I wanted Gervonta Tank Davis to spend a long stretch in jail. Whatever the judge decided, she decided. But why is he getting out early now? His sentence was lenient like it was for the crimes he pleaded guilty to. It would have maybe called for a more serious sentence. And I'm not complaining about the sentence, once again, that he was given per se. But if you're given 3 months behind bars, but not behind bars, a 3-month jail sentence under house arrest.
Right.
You violate the house arrest by staying at a fancy hotel, purchasing a mansion, which goes against the agreement, meaning you had to stay in your trainer's house because his trainer's house was too small for him. Well, I bet his trainer's house was bigger than a jail cell, and he violated it. And the judge sends him to jail, and Tank Davis gets these high-priced attorneys, so she's letting him out a week or 2 early from that sentence, from the jail again. I don't get it. Good for Tank Davis if he could get out early, but I hope he learns something from this. I'm not saying Tank Davis is a bad person. I don't know him. I don't know what's in his heart. He did some bad things that I know, and you don't want someone's life ruined if they have the potential to do good going forward. But I don't understand our legal system. How can he get out early from a 3-month sentence in jail that he violated? He violated house arrest, and that's why he was put in jail.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
That's just good behavior or some kind of.
No, he could. It's 3 months, Matt. How good is the dumb behavior? The reason he was put behind bars because he violated his house arrest.
I'm taking a guess, Jack. I'm just guessing.
Listen, I'm not saying I wanted him to stay in jail the rest of the time. I just don't get our legal system here. And now what we hear, Tank Davis resuming his career. Listen, there was a boxer years ago named Tony Ayala, and Tank Davis is nothing like him, so I'm not drawing a comparison, Tank Davis, with him at all. So don't think of Tank Davis's name with this fighter. But Tony Ayala. He was considered one of boxing's great prospects. He was on the brink of being perhaps boxing's next superstar. A fight with Roberto Duran was in the works. He was a virtual can't miss in the eyes of a lot of people. And he raped a couple of women, Matt. And he was sent away for 15 years.
Yeah.
15 years. He was eligible to be let out after 15 years. After 15 years, he's let out finally, but the prosecutor, the person in charge, didn't feel he was ready to be let out. And that person in law enforcement became so unpopular because everyone wanted to see Tony Ayala fight again. Well, he was let out. Eventually, he found his way back into jail.
Right.
So, I think the public, what I'm saying, sometimes gets caught up in a guy's career. The public doesn't care about Tank Davis, the person.
Right.
They care about Tank Davis, the fighter. Oh, let him out so he could fight Shakur Stevenson or Devin Haney, or he could fight this guy, that guy. We want to see him out. And I hope Tank Davis realizes that. How many people really care about Tank Davis or just care about his career? I want what's best for Tank Davis, the person.
Yeah.
That's me. I mean, listen, I don't care about his career that much. I hope he does well, whatever. But I care about Tank Davis, the person, and I hope he's taking stock of that himself more than he's taking stock of his career.
I hope so too, Jack. You got a Jermaine Franklin versus Isaac Munoz, Jack. That fight coming up.
I saw it yesterday, yeah. Jermaine, I covered it for my publication, Boxing News. I covered it off the Zone. That's how reporting's done this day. Jermaine Franklin beats Munoz by unanimous decision. Really, he won 9 of the 10 rounds of all 10 rounds. And Jermaine Franklin was coming off 2 losses to Dillian White and Anthony Joshua in the UK, went the distance in both. So he made a name for himself. He's basically a gatekeeper. He's not a serious heavyweight contender, but he's a line in the sand. Gotcha. He's a good guy to match a Jared Anderson against, because if Anderson is a future heavyweight champion, he's expected to defeat a Jermaine Franklin. But it's no gimme because Jermaine Franklin moves forward, fights hard, has a fair degree of talent, not an easy guy to beat. But if you're really a top-of-the-line heavyweight, you have to beat Jermaine Franklin with a little room to spare. But if you're not that good of a heavyweight, Jermaine Franklin's going to beat you.
Gotcha. All right. Something to be said about the gatekeepers, right, Jack?
That's a lot. The important part, yeah. Yesterday on that same show from Detroit, there's a fighter, Andy Cruz, a lightweight, who made his debut. He was a 3-time amateur world champion, 2-time Pan American Games champion, an Olympic gold medalist. And Eddie Hearn, the promoter of Matchroom Boxing, said he could be the most talented fighter that I ever signed. And we're talking about guys like Anthony Joshua, who Hearn has signed before. It's his first pro fight. He fought a guy, Juan Carlos Burgos, who has never been stopped, never knocked out in more than 40 fights, okay? And against good opponents like Devin Haney and Mikey Garcia, Cruz dominated, won a 10-round decision, fought a 10-round in his first fight. He's 28 years old, from Cuba. Certain fighters, Mac, who have had such an extensive amateur career, they don't have to follow the same traditional path that we're used to. Oh, you start off your career with a 4-rounder, work your way up to a 6-rounder, then an 8-rounder, then a 10-rounder. You start fighting contenders in 3 years. These guys want to fight for the title off the bat.
Right.
Pretty close to it. So he fought a guy, Andy Cruz and Juan Carlos Burgos, who was a gatekeeper himself. Tough fighter, is going to bring it, which Burgos did, but Cruz responded. He looked great in winning a 10-round decision. And in about a year's time or so, you're going to slot him in as a threat to maybe the Shakur Stevenson, the Devin Haney's. You know, he's going to be ready in short order to fight the big names. If you know, he's not going to have a lot of fights.
Okay. Josh Kelly beats Gabriel Corzo. Jack, was that the English title or?
Yeah, that was for British title. I didn't catch that fight.
Yeah.
So. You know, regional titles, Mac, like for British titles, they used to mean a lot more. They mean a lot to the fighters because the fighters like to hold up belts.
Sure.
I remember once Joe DeGuardia, okay, he would have fights on his, you know, Yonkers Raceway, and a New York State title would be on the line. No one would even know who contenders were for the New York State title or this or that. But I remember him telling me it means a lot to the fighters. Winning a regional title, holding up the belt. I could say I'm the New York State welterweight champion. I mean, you know, it's me. It's not meaningful, Mac, to world championship caliber fighters. They don't care about a state regional title. But a guy who's very unlikely to ever fight for a world title, it means a lot when his career's done to say, well, in my day, I was, you know, a champion of his state.
Right. I remember we had a guy on there that was a New York State champion. I think he was a boxer and not a serious contender for the world champion.
Oh, yeah, I think you meant Chris Smith. Chris Smith was a good fighter. Yeah, Chris Smith was a good fighter. Chris Smith fell in under the cracks. He wasn't an elite fighter where he was a world championship title contender, but he was still a good fighter. Very good fighter.
Right. Anthony Joshua versus Dylan White sold out in 2 hours, Jack. That's also over in England, and that's why, right? They're both from England, and that's.
Yeah, they fought in 2015. Joshua stopped him in 7 rounds. Dillian White is a shot fighter. He's which means in boxing he doesn't have it anymore. He just doesn't. They're high, but listen, things are done in society on names, name recognition. And Dillian White's well known, especially in the UK. He has a resume. Anthony Joshua is still a major attraction, you know, a big name. So they're running it back between the two of them. And the whole idea is to make Anthony Joshua look good. He wins by a stoppage. He creates a buzz, his marketability, which he hasn't really lost that much of. He gains a little bit of his mojo back. But if Anthony Joshua goes the distance and beats Dillian White, forget about him. I don't want to hear about a fight him against Deontay Wilder coming up. Anthony Joshua has got to impressively stop Dillian White to show that he has a lot left. I can't say that Anthony Joshua is necessarily a fading fighter in his career. There's been there have been disappointments. He lost the 2 decisions to Alexander Usyk, but he was competitive in both fights. And he had good moments in both fights, and he won a few rounds in both fights. And his last fight against Jermaine Franklin, his promoter Eddie Hearn saying Joshua's got to win impressively by a stoppage. Well, it went the distance. And then we heard damage control after saying he had to win by a knockout. Hearn is saying, and Joshua, and apologists for Joshua, is saying, well, it's his first fight with his new trainer, Derek James. They're learning to work together. Ah, come on, don't tell me that nonsense. It was disappointing him going the full distance against Jermaine Franklin in the last fight. But at least Jermaine Franklin, if I'm going to make an excuse, I could say he's durable. He's more durable than we thought he is. Dillian White is not durable.
Yeah.
In his last fight, you know, Tyson Fury basically toyed with him and then knocked him out with an uppercut in the 6th round.
But it is boxing in England, from what I see, is way more popular than it is here right now, Jack. I mean,
I would say so.
They love boxing.
I would say so. Yeah. In the UK, tremendous activity in the UK. Tremendous support. Yeah.
Well, Pags won't be in, so we'll give you the Philly news really quick. They won a double header. yesterday, the Phillies, something about after the All-Star break, Jack. Something about after the All-Star break, they always kick it in. I don't understand. I don't know.
The Phillies are coming on, but I'll tell you, baseball of all sports, it's hard to get a handle on what's going to happen in the playoffs. So right now, the Atlanta Braves are the best team in baseball. Yeah. But if the playoffs started today, there's a reasonable chance the Braves wouldn't win it.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't get to the World Series because baseball is kind of odd the way all of a sudden a team goes cold during the playoffs. And I don't think it's a question of motivation. I think baseball's a weird game. It just happens. All of a sudden, you're not hitting one day, and then the next day you are hitting, and vice versa. Yeah. And you never know what's going to happen. I mean, I picked the Braves to win the World Series over the Yankees, in the beginning of the season. Don't laugh about the Yankees getting there because things do change. But the Phillies got off to such a slow start, and they put it together. So the Phillies should make the playoffs, and maybe this is their year. Maybe they'll wind up winning it all. The Mets, is there any way back for the Mets, Mac? Are they just about through?
Start selling.
You're throwing a towel, Mac.
Yeah. Sell a team. Sell the players. Do what you got to do. It's time to get rid of some of that old boy, Jack. Even the pitchers. Get rid of some of them.
Cohn. Yeah. Steve Cohn. I heard somewhere, maybe wrongly, that there's a tiny bit of rumblings about Steve Cohn, which to me would be ridiculous. If I'm Steve Cohn, I'm Steve Cohn, Mac, and I hear Met fans complaining about me after all the money I spent, okay, I start rebuilding. I said, what the heck? I built up my farm system. The heck with you. I'm not signing these big contracts with the fans. The fans, after complaining about the Wilpons, would have the nerve to complain about Steve Cohn.
Oh, for years. Do you think it's the general manager, Jack? Do you think did he hire a new general manager? Is that the problem? It's got to be the general manager. I mean, he's not out there, I don't think, grading players and recruiting people. I don't think he does that. He pays people to do their job. That's got to be a GM fault, right?
No, I don't think it's anyone's fault except the players. They're just not performing, Mac. You can get all the right players and make all the right moves, and things might not work out. I mean, let's look at he signed Justin Verlander. Right. How do you knock that? A Cy Young award when he only signed him to a 2-year contract, okay? Meaning Verlander's close to 40, but it's not a long-term commitment, so I don't want to he signed an older pitcher, and Verlander hasn't pitched well following his Cy Young Award season. And is age catching up to him? Perhaps it is, but he's coming up a Cy Young Award season. Max Scherzer hasn't been that bad. He's just, for what he's getting paid, he's been bad.
Yeah, he's not what he was.
Max Scherzer, 3-year deal, was pretty good last year, all in all, until his last couple of starts where he came up empty in the biggest spots at the end of the year. But those are high-impact pitchers he's signing. They signed Jeff McNeil, like I mentioned, to an extension. McNeil's not hitting.
Nope.
I mean, what are the Mets supposed to do with Pete Alonso? He's under contract next year, then he's a free agent. If they don't sign him, he goes elsewhere. People are going to be critical of the Mets.
Well, they got to sign. They got to sign.
But maybe he doesn't perform if you sign him. Lindor, that 10-year contract was daffy to me. I said it all along. Okay,
it's done and over. But they got to sign Alonso back. He's he's got to be the face of the franchise of the Mets too. I would think he's that star quality. I would think. But
where are they going moving forward? Like, Marte signing them, guys like that. I think players got to play better. That's the bottom line.
Jack, some players can't play better. They're too old. They're declining. Some players don't hustle like other players. Some players have been playing baseball too long. They may not be old, excuse me, but they're tired of playing baseball. They don't seem. Some some players just don't seem interested out there. I watch if you watch some of the Yankee highlights, they just don't seem interested sometimes. It's like, whatever. I don't know, Jack. I don't know what the answer is. I like watching the young teams. I like watching the young teams that love playing baseball and not for a lot of money. And that's what if I see the Reds on or something like that, if I could find the Reds, I'd watch them rather than I watch the Yankees right now. They want to play the game. And
but Mac,
go ahead.
And sometimes the wheels fall off, Mac. The Mets won 101 games last year, but they choked at the end of the season. They just flat out choked to get swept at home by the lowly Chicago Cubs to blow the lead.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is 101 wins, and they wound up as a wild card. But until they faded, and I'll use the word choked again, until they choked at the end of the season, there was this great feeling about the Mets. All the moves Steve Cohen made, Buck Showalter, brilliant move by the Mets. Everyone was, bragging about what a great manager Showalter was and about all the players. And then they blow the lead. They were a wild card. They lose to the Padres in the opening round of the playoffs. And this year's been a mini disaster. No one expected them to be this bad this year. It's like the wheel suddenly fell off. Yeah. But there was a point everything's great. Hypothetically, Mac, we talk about Ohtani's free agency. Let's say Steve Cohen outbids everyone else and signs him. 2 years from now, Ohtani might be no more than just a good player, nothing special. They'd have to sign him for 10 years at least. Okay, right. At least. They signed him with a 10-year deal. Maybe 2-3 years in, he's an average pitcher. And he's just DHing, and he's hitting you 32 home runs a year and hitting 270 or whatever. Maybe he's not the superstar anymore, that his skills start declining. And then we're going to talk about, what a bad signing it was.
Well, I think then he takes the Ruth route where he just becomes a hitter. I'd like to go back and look at Ruth at his best when he played for Boston, when he was pitching and hitting home runs, when he was hitting 36 home runs and pitching for Boston, and compare Ohtani to Ruth like that. Because when he played with the Yankees, he didn't pitch that much, Jack. I mean, when he pitched, he won. But they didn't use him to pitch that much. He pitched
a few games, I think, for the Yankees.
Yeah, he did, but he didn't pitch like he did for the Red Sox. I'd like to, because they were saying Ohtani's better than Ruth. I don't know about that. I mean, if you take his best years with Boston, pitching and hitting, is he better than Ohtani? I know he's got a better batting average than Ohtani, that's for sure. So I'm going to check that out one day and go back.
This is a great question, Mac. This is kind of funny. Let's make believe the Babe could come back to life today and be just as good a major leaguer today as he was in his time, right, as a pitcher and as an everyday player. But you can only use him as one or the other. But consider this. He would be the equivalent of Clayton Kershaw as a pitcher when Kershaw was at his best. The equivalent.
Right.
What do you use him as? An everyday player in the outfield, or as maybe the best pitcher in all of baseball? The fans would, I think, the fans would revolt if they couldn't see him with a bat in his hand. But I guess now that pitchers can DH, you could put the bat in his hand. Yeah. But let's say you didn't have the DH.
All right.
But they'd still see the bat in his hand as a pitcher. So I think he would be a pitcher for sure, because he would get up as a pitcher even without a DH.
He would be a pitcher batting fourth, Jack, in the lineup. Of course, we talk about left-handed power. They say that Bryce Harper's nearing his first base debut. They got a young kid, Jack, there. Johan Rojas, outfielder, makes an incredible double play, makes a great catch in the outfield, throws a guy out in the infield. I was talking to you earlier about 76ers.
Well, no, I just want to say one thing with the Phillies.
Go ahead.
The forgotten man is Rice Hoskins, their first baseman, who got injured in the beginning of the year. He was out the season. They never wound up trading him. There was talk they'd trade him. A real good quality major leaguer. What's going to be with him at the end of the year? You'd think the Phillies would maybe want to move on from him.
Maybe.
But I don't think they get any real value, and he is a good player coming off the injury. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Phillies with Hoskins.
I agree, especially if Bryce Harper's moving over to first. If that's what the position's going to be.
Yep.
Mo Bamba thinks the 76ers can play double big on court. This has been done in the past. Sampson and the other guy, I forget the other guy's name, but probably the best ones was when Robinson and Duncan played together on the court.
Well, Nick Nurse, the coach, hasn't signaled his intentions yet, to my knowledge, how he wants the 76ers to play. Their new coach, Nick Nurse, coming over from Toronto. But I think they're waiting to see how the James Harden situation plays out. It looks like the Sixers are going to move on from Harden because Harden especially says he wants to play for the Clippers.
Right.
But then again, Joel Embiid supposedly developed a friendship with Harden, and maybe Embiid is just saying the politically correct things, but if he means what he says, he really wants Harden back. He really wants to run it back with Harden. He feels they can win an NBA championship together. Or maybe Joel Embiid just sees, look, if James Harden leaves, we're not better. So I want him there. Let's take our chances again.
Right. And Lillard has been mentioned with the Celtics and, of course, with the 76ers. So we'll see what happens.
Well, the talk is they're nearing a deal for Damian Lillard to go to his preferred destination, the Miami Heat. The Heat are going to supposedly trade Tyler Hero and 3 number ones, but they want 4 number ones, Portland. Maybe they'll do pick swaps, but let's say that works out, then Hero gets traded maybe for a draft pick elsewhere. All the things are kind of in motion. They seem to are trying to tie up the loose ends. But while they're trying to tie up the loose ends, you never know what other team could come in at the last moment and offer Portland a blockbuster deal, a team that's a potential contender to win it all. And maybe Damian Lillard will see, even though I prefer going to Miami, this is a nice destination as well. And Portland might not trade me to Miami. They really want me to go elsewhere. And okay, I'll go to that other place because I think they're ready to win now, and I like playing there. You don't know what's going through Damian Lillard's mind.
Very possible. Last Philadelphia 76er news. Paul Reed, they match Paul Reed's offer for the Utah Jazz, big man Paul Reed that played last year. Utah Jazz offered him a contract. The Phillies have matched it. So I don't know if he's going or staying, but that's all I got.
All right, okay, I don't know. Okay.
Paul Reed, he's a big man. He was a bench player, Jack. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, it's good, Mac, that you give everyone their recognition here, not just the stars.
Definitely. So, folks, thanks for tuning in today. That's it for the Mac and Jack Sports Show this week in sports. Next week, we'll have Jeffcoat back with us and all our guests that appeared today. We'll be back on Thursday. Watch on Friday. Sorry, I always say Thursday. We'll be back on Friday with the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Monday night, check out Jack and Frank Lutierzo on Glove Fist. As I imagine, they'll be going over some of the boxing that happened last night and some of the other stuff coming up. So thanks for joining us. Have a good Sunday. And if you're up here in the Northeast, try and stay dry. Have a good one, folks.